Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this time it's going to be focused on the Dread Elf new army book that has been released today, as a matter of fact. So I have been involved in the development of this book as a playtester, and I have played quite some games with the playtesting version of this book. And the way this playtesting works is that you get a draft for the book. That you can use to set up a game. You play the game, you give your feedback on the different choices and the different um, possibilities that you can that you have access to with the book. And then based on your feedback, they sometimes change some things, sometimes convince you that it's not that bad, and there's some disputes that you resolve on the forums. So you've also seen probably some videos or heard some podcasts about the new Dread Elves by some other people that have looked at it. I have been involved in the Dread Elf playtesting, so I am mostly going to comment on how to use different choices rather than what they are. So if you're looking for the stats, just go to the book. If you want to have a bit of a review on how to use the different choices, then this is going to be more of a video for you. So one of the first major things in Dread Elves is the introduction of academy training. Previously, this was not in the book. You had the different cults and they had some interaction. With the new book, they kind of decided to just get rid of the cults and impose academy training on some choices. So the choices that have academy training are the legionnaires and the repeater crossbowmen, now called auxiliaries, and the obsidian guard. So that used to be the tower guard or the black guard. And there's one character choice that also has it. There's also a banner that you can use to give infantry units academy training twice in your army. It's mostly useful for the devastating charge rule, and it also enables infantry units to hold up against gigantic monsters because the enemy counts as having one less rank if you're within 8 inches of another academy trained unit. So, for example, you have a unit of 15 repeater crossbowmen, and an enemy giant charges you. He hits you on a 4+ because of parry and a high defensive skill. He wounds you on a 2+, probably. You don't have any army left. He thunderstomps you. If you have 5 auxiliaries left at the end, then you're going to be steadfast because the monster has a rank. You have 1 rank, but you discount his rank. So that is great. You can really hold up stuff like that. This pressing volley special rule on the Legion auxiliaries is something that a lot of people on the forum talk about, and a lot of people are worried about. It's a special rule that gives -1 to hit to another charging auxiliary or academy trained unit, be it a character on a manticore that is academy trained, or well, anything else really with academy trained. But in order to trigger it, you have to start your turn with one of your auxiliary units within 18 inches of a viable charge target. Have another unit with academy train charge the unit. Have your opponent not flee away and actually make the charge. And then it's also important that the -1 to hit actually makes a difference in the ensuing combat. So I think that the ideal situation is if you have a character on a manticore or Legion Legate that charges in, has defensive 6, I believe, so the enemy hits you on 4+, becomes 5+. And then with the Ring of the Obsidian Thrones, which we will see later, you can decrease the offensive of the opponent, so you might actually go to a 6+ to hit for your opponent. Alternatively, you have magic to get another -1 to hit. Or the Temple Militants can also get upgraded with academy training, and you have a guy that also triggers a -1 to hit. If you can pull it off with the Temple Militants, then it's gonna be really cool. But I never managed to pull it off with all of my playtesting games, whilst a couple of these armies were just highly academy trained focused, with all of my units nearly being academy trained. The Legion Legate, which is a character choice, gets a +1 to charge, and you can combine that with Send of Blood. That's on the Raptor, on the Chariot, or the Manticore, which is another +1 to charge if the unit that you are charging has already taken a wound earlier in the game. You can also still use witchcraft to increase this further. So basically, in the end, you can get a manticore with an advance of 12 on the charge. It's really insane. That's really cool though. Also, I mean, some of your magic is going to go in that, and for a lot of charges, it doesn't really make a big difference because you either make the charge or not. Um, but the range you have with some stuff is insane. On the topic of academy training, this is a list that I showed during playtesting that has been restricted now. So, academy training, as you read before, the rank bonus, or as you can read in the book, the rank bonus of your opponent goes down, and the opponent also counts as having one less rank for the purposes of steadfast, and it gives you devastating charge. But that only triggers if the majority of your unit has academy trained. Legion legates have academy trained, and they don't lose it when they take a mount. So if you combine 2 Raptor Chariots with another Raptor Chariot, of which you have 2 Legion legates, then the unit's gonna be academy trained. So previously in Dread Elves there was a combination which was quite successful with 3 Chariot heroes. And now these chariots, they can get to an advance of 9, which is quite good. You can even buff that further up with witchcraft, and you automatically have a +1 to wound in the first round of combat due to the ruthless efficiency special rule instead of killer instinct that they used to have. If you build your characters a little bit grindy, then this unit of 2 Raptor Chariots with another Raptor Chariot is just gonna go through anything basically, because it has 3d6 strength 5 impact hits +3. Each chariot has a crewman with 2 attacks with a lance with effectively strength 7 on the charge. You still have the Legion legates, 3 attacks each. So that's another 6 attacks and another 2 attacks, and then the Raptors, they have 2 attacks each, so that's another 12 attacks with now lethal strike that you can even give hatred if you want to. Yeah, this was an insane list, and I'm glad that it's not possible anymore. You can have one of these units with 2 Legion legates on Raptor Chariots and another Raptor Chariot, and it's not even too expensive if you keep the cost down. It's a cool unit to play once. I would definitely play it once just to get a feel for it. I am curious to see what's going to happen with that. On the topic of Artistry of Death and Ruthless Efficiency, so Ruthless Efficiency is first round of combat a +1 to wound. Artistry of Death is this bonus all of the combat rounds. It's on the Assassin, it's on the Judicators, so the old Dread Judges, and there's one magic item that gives you that. It makes it kind of interesting to put Shieldbreaker on a model, because effectively your heroes are strength 5 now, and strength 5 is kind of the threshold, for me at least, to put Shieldbreaker on something. I ran this also with my Warriors of the Dark Gods, just a model with 4 attacks, with a 1 up armor save, with Shieldbreaker, and it's incredibly versatile and useful, and not even that expensive. So here I went for Dread Prince on the Coastal Raptor. So he has a 1 up armor save in the end. And Dread Elves also kind of allows you to use Alchemist Alloy. The Dread Prince has offensive 8, so he goes to offensive 6 with it. That's still fine. That's still fine. He has 5 attacks with Shieldbreaker. He has a 1 up armor save, rerollable himself. He's gonna kill a lot. Yeah, then core infantry with ruthless efficiency also stand up to high resilience with low armor monsters. So if you go for the spear version, then you have AP2 if the enemy charges you. If you have the auxiliaries, you don't have any AP. But for example, as a giant, just 15 auxiliaries. If they march up, you get 30 shots that hit on 4+, which is going to be 15 hits that wound on a 6+, you get 2 wounds. On the standard shoot, you do another 3 wounds. The auxiliaries are gonna strike first and they kill the giant. Just a full giant. So this is quite impressive. It's really a anti-monster army in this sense. The army is going to struggle a little bit with armor generally, because the only choices that are really good at taking care of armor um, are probably the Judicators. They have a high AP, but otherwise the army does struggle a bit. And also, the profiles seem really good, but on the other hand, everything is really expensive. So you're gonna notice that everything is really expensive. And I had, yeah, I played about 10 to 15 games. Every single game, at the start of the game, I felt like I had just enough to deal with the stuff of my opponent in terms of units. And if there was one moment in the game where it went wrong for me somewhere, then the game just flipped completely. But on the other hand, I also had the game flip over like 3 times from a 20-0 for me to a 20-0 for my opponent to a 20-0 for me. Yeah, it's really glass cannon, and that is also what appeals to me a lot, because it really rewards good play. And witchcraft as a lore really helps with that, I must say. Blades of Darak, they effectively act as magic resistance for combats where you don't necessarily need any buffs. So if the enemy hexes you, they also trigger the +1 strength. So they might give you a -1 to hit, which is fine. You get a +1 strength. Starting at strength 3, it's probably useful to get a +1 strength, even though you have the +1 to wound. I mean, there's nothing in the game currently with a resilience of 1 or 2. 2 is really rare. So yeah, this strength buff that you get is nearly always going to be useful. The only case in which you don't benefit from it is if you already cast a spell on them yourself and your opponent casts a spell. But yeah, I think it's a cool unit. It's cool to keep in mind that it also prevents your opponent from casting spells on them. And it severely boosts the potential of cheap spells. So the +1 armor of alchemy is, for example, suddenly really viable. They have a 6-up inbuilt armor save. A lot of stuff has 1 AP. So 4 or 5+, getting a 6+ effective armor save after 1 AP. That is, yeah, meh. But just to get +1 strength in combination with that is suddenly quite good. And Hand of Glory on a Wizard Outcast in the unit is just really insane. You get a 5-up Aegis for everyone in the unit if you sacrifice 4 or 5 up to cast, and you get a +1 strength. It's really good. Then the hereditary spell. This I tried a cavalry army, also just full cavalry army, when the crossbows didn't have the what's it called, the multiple shots 3, and then it didn't work at all. I mean, my opponent has too many wounds for me to deal with, and cavalry doesn't have enough wounds on the table in any unit, so you're gonna have 10 wounds at max in a unit, and you're gonna suffer like 3 wounds in a bad turn. So that would result in 3 hits on your opposing unit. So then the spell is just not worth it at all. It promotes infantry, it promotes bigger units. It's really useful on temple militants that die like flies out of combat. But the spell is mostly useful in combat, because then the combat resolution that it gives is tremendous. And it can really make the difference between winning a combat and losing a combat. Yeah, special items. The Crippling Frost is an item that only goes on the Dread Prince because he's the only one with access to a great weapon. I would make him a real glass cannon by giving him the Potion of Swiftness and Ranger Boots. And Essence of Mithril, I would probably prefer over Seal of the Republic. Seal of the Republic allows you to go to a 1-up armor save, but the chances of you killing something are a little bit lower if you face something like a 4-up Aegis. Then it's just nicer to have the 2-up armor save straight from the bat. Lacerating Touch, it's a bit of the Hero's Heart equivalent of the army. It gives you 2 extra attacks instead of Hero's Heart's only 1. But it leaves you at strength 4, but it gives you the permanent +1. I don't know, it doesn't. So in the first round of combat, you are effectively at strength 5 because you have the ruthless efficiency, but for the grind, hero's heart is better. And it allows you to cause fear, so it's an easy way to trigger the Mask of the Warcrow in another unit when you're not playing Divine Altar with Effigy of Dread. But this is really a good choice. The Executioner's Icon, I don't think I will use it that much because the Judicators already have Artistry of Death. Dread Knights, they can use it, but they don't have that many attacks, so probably it's Obsidian Guard who's just going to benefit most of it. It's also interesting on a big spear unit. If you play a horde of 40, I would probably put on the Executioner's Icon, yeah. Or the Eye of the Gorgon. I don't remember if it can only go on non-core units. I believe it does. But the Eye of the Gorgon is also really good. Especially, well, the army has some built-in fear mechanics, which mostly rely on having an Effigy of Dread Divine Altar. So if you have this Divine Altar, then everything within 18 inches is going to cause fear. The Eye of the Gorgon is forcing your opponent to reroll the discipline tests, and the Effigy of Dread also forces that you cannot use your Rally Around the Flag ability for the fear checks. So suddenly people are gonna fail their fear checks. You're gonna have a +1 to it, which you might not even need, but the enemy is gonna get another way of getting a -1 to it. So in combat, Dread Elves are really gonna be quite scary. And the Eye of the Gorgon also helps in breaking Steadfast, especially if you couple it with fear again. In addition, it still does the hits of the Petrifying Stare, but I think that's going to mostly be just a secondary effect rather than the primary effect. The Academy banner is a good banner for units that basically want a banner of speed just for the charge potential. Unfortunately, it's not available to Dread Knights. That used to be the case, but they got a bit too good with that. I mean, 5 Dread Knights with an Academy banner that charge into the flank of a unit also discount one of the ranks of your opponent, count as 1 rank for yourself. So you effectively have just a unit with 2 ranks in the flank of the enemy, so you break their stat fast. This is a bit, yeah, strong, but that also applies to any other Academy trained unit that charges into the flank of any other unit. It still has a rank and is within 8 inches. You still break the opponent's stat fast, so that is really cool in general with Academy trained. Mask of the Warcrow is incredible. It gives you fear. It gives units within. It gives yourself, if you have fear, which you have, reroll once to wound. It gives you unit reroll once to wound, and units within 6 inches that contain any models with fear also reroll once to wound. Reroll once to wound is well, it's easy to go over the top with the damage output of Dread Elves. Because, for example, Judicators, you can put a Legion Legate in there with the Mask of the Warcrow and the Ring of the Ninth Legion. Then you get Battle Focus Judicators with reroll once to wound. They already have Hatred, so you're gonna inflict more hits than you have attacks. So you're gonna Deployment Horde, you have 24 attacks, so you're gonna have like 30 hits at strength 5 with +1 to wound with AP 4. With reroll once to wound, I mean, that's you're just gonna do 30 wins. The Signrar's Gambit, this only got added after playtesting, so I don't really know too much about it. I haven't played with it. But it also got discussed on the forum, on the playtesting forum, what happens if you use a bounce spell with a Warlock Outcast. The casting value goes up, so it doesn't have a casting value, I believe. So that is not affected, but the enemy still gets the -2 to dispel. Because it's the model that casts a spell through the bounce spell. So that makes bounce spells generally really good. Ring of the Ninth, yeah, probably just battle focus on Judicators. Ring of the Obsidian Thrones, that is an amazing item to both protect your rank of file and also to protect characters with a decent defensive. So the Dread Prince has defensive 5, I believe, maybe 6. I believe 6. Yeah. I think that's really worth it already, because if you manage to lower the offensive of your opponent by 3, then you're gonna likely be only hit on 5+. It's also worthwhile on just rank and file models. Just getting -1 to hit for your opponent is already worth it. Especially combined with the other ways of getting -1 to hit. Beastmaster's Whistle is actually the only item to help out Monster Mash, but Monster Mash doesn't really need any special items as it is. I think, yeah, it did get your monsters a little bit faster in combat. I think you're not gonna need it because it's already conditional. It's already conditional to get a situation where it would make a difference, and then when it makes a difference, your opponent can still flee likely. So I think there's other ways to spend your points that are better. And Dread Prince as a choice. The Dread Prince seems only worth it with the Crippling Frost, great weapon, and also with Shieldbreaker on a Raptor properly. So initially they had Deadly Riposte only to trigger if your model is on foot on 1s and on 2s, and now it's on 1s for any situation. So you don't really have a reason to be on foot anymore, except for having the protection of your unit. But the mobility that a mount gives you is it's really good. And then again, if you put him on a mount, either just include some Golden Knights or just flood the field with single models, so that the opponent cannot target him out as effectively anymore. Beastmaster is an amazing choice, I think. So the minimize discipline on the monster really makes you focus on monsters, and it omits the need for a BSB. You can run him with triple Hydras if you run him on foot. So yeah, on foot you would say that a Beastmaster is not that solid on foot, but on foot he has basically 2 rules, or 1 rule that works in 2 ways. So he maximizes your own stomp and he minimizes the opponent's stomp. Maximizing your own stomp with a dragon, with a kraken is really cool. With a Hydra it's not that necessary actually, because you don't generally get into situations with Hydras where you're losing by a lot, just because of the possibility of also using your breath weapon, having your high amount of attacks. Just generally Hydras don't lose by a lot. Yeah, then the Legion Legate, I think it's an ideal character for a Manticore. So the Beastmaster and the Legion Legate can both take a Manticore. The maximized stomp doesn't really help the Manticore, because he only has 1 stomp, unless you take the bigger version. And the Legion Legate has Discipline 10, whilst the Beastmaster offers Discipline 9 with minimized. But the Legion Legate can also be a BSB, or you can make him general and have 18-inch towering presence. Discipline 10, which seems better than the same thing with a Beastmaster. 3 attacks seems low, but you can just put Hero's Heart on it with paired weapons. You can get to Strength 5 with 6 attacks. Because 5 attacks, 5 attacks. Yeah, that seems sufficient. So defensive 6 with the Ring of Obsidian Thrones is also quite interesting, because most rank file will only hit you on 5+. Also, probably this is going to be the piece that's most likely to trigger Suppressing Volley, because it has a lot of different charge targets that it can charge into. And your Legion auxiliaries are going to be within 18 inches of some stuff. So if you charge them into something, it's going to likely get another -1 to it. So the chances that someone will hit you only on 6s is actually quite big. Then Legion Legates on Raptor Chariots, we talked about that before. Temple Legate, that is an awesome low-cost hybrid DSB. So you don't really need another type of equipment other than just Blades of Darak. I mean, your unit is already doing a lot of work for you. I found that it's quite a useful choice to have in your unit to just accept challenges, because you have a 4-up Aegis in combat. You can smack on something like Essence of Mithril. Destiny's Call doesn't really work here. And then you have a nice armor save together with it. You can also go for the Seal of the Republic, but damage output of the Temple Legates is not that big. And yeah, you might want to invest in some AP focused gear on him. So Shield Breaker on him is also really good because it also helps with the issues that the unit has. So, for example, paired weapons, Shield Breaker is a good choice on him. The only downside is that it's susceptible to snipe spells. But then again, it's 280 points. It's a BSB. It's a Wizard Adept. It's a combat model. It's everything I want. The Warlock Outcasts. You don't have any ranged defensive items for solo mages anymore, like the Midnight Cloak. So mounts are less attractive in general. And occultism mostly might struggle in this. Yet you can now just play a unit with a mage in the unit. The units they hit harder than before just because of the army-wide +1 to wound rather than killer instinct. And if you can just run them in a unit and slap on Destiny's Call it a day. Another possibility is to use a unit of Beast Tamers or Corsairs. With light troops, the Beast Tamers, or what name do they have now? The raiding party with Beast Breakers. They're a good choice because they can still give hatred to something within 8 inches, I believe. On the harnessed part of the unit, so on the gold ones of your Golden Knights or the Raptor Chariots or the a dragon or yeah, I think that's still a good choice because the Beast Breakers they also have 4 of armor save against ranged. So if your opponent really wants to just blast down your mage bunker, it's fine. It's just fine. The Wizard Outcast does have not a leader, so that harms the army in a big time. It used to be quite popular to get a Wizard Outcast or a Oracle General. That's no longer possible, so that's a bit of a bummer. It's one of the indirect buffs or nerfs to the army. But apparently it comes from the fluff. But I think it's also an army design rule. Sound Assassin, he's only 180 points, so he's not meant to be able to kill outright any character. He is meant to be able to kill all of the support characters that the opponent fields, like stuff in Empire of Sunstyle. You can turn down Empire of Sunstyle just with a Silent Assassin, probably. He's a really nice utility piece as a force multiplier for your infantry. So if you ever have a combat where you're like, damn, if I only had like 2 attacks more or so, which to me happens more often than not, to be honest, then Silent Assassin is a great piece because you can deploy him anywhere on board, really, in just infantry. So you have to be a bit of an infantry player for this, but I think it's a really cool piece in the army. Then with regards to mounts, I don't really get the Pegasus because it doesn't seem to have any advantage over other choices except for just being large rather than gigantic. But then I think you can just as well just get a horse if you want a Pegasus. Core, the Legionaries. Why would you take them? You take them because they are the AP option in the core list. So probably I would just even put a AP banner on top of it just to make sure. Yeah, other banners you might want to take on them. So we talked earlier about the Executioner's icon for permanent +1 to wound. If you play a horde, then it really seems good to have the Executioner's icon. If you play a bit of a smaller unit, I would probably go for an AP banner. So like up to 25 AP banner, above 25 I would go for the Executioner's icon. And a horde really seems good for the army. If you play a horde, just also bring some binding scrolls just in case. Then the militants, they have strong interaction with legates, so if you put down militants, I would put down 2 units of militants. Each give a temple legate in there, one of each, so you have 1 warsmith, you have 1 battle oracle. You're not going to feel the warlock outcast, and this just works. Fearless is a bit of a bonus for a unit that just wants to get in combat anyway. And the unit really hits harder than it seems on paper. You don't have any AP, so that's a bit of a downside. But the AP banner works well with the Wasmith. I think that the Battle Oracle, you shouldn't really try to make it work against really well armored foes, because you can better focus just on damage output in other ways. And with the divination, you also have scrying, so you can get another -1 to hit. The Battle Oracle gives you -1 to hit. And you can make them academy terrain, so you can use the suppressing volley of your auxiliaries. This is also a really cool way to play the army, but as you might have noticed, when I mentioned the legionnaires, it goes one direction in the army. When I mentioned the militants, it goes another direction in the army. If you really go for raiding parties, then you go for a beast theme army. I think they did well with the core choices, except for one thing, which is that the Corsairs, I think they should have the option to just throw away their throwing weapons and not count towards the raider limit. The Auxiliaries, solid choice. We already spoke about it. Shadow Riders, they were not worth it in playtesting with 2-shot crossbows on short range, but now with the 3-shot crossbows, it really seems appealing, because a unit of 8 still has 24 shots, 24 stand and shoot shots, 8 agility 5 attacks, and 8 horses at agility 4. That's a lot of damage output. I mean, if you're looking at something like Empire Heavy Infantry, then your 24 shots, they're gonna hit on a 4 plus 12 hits, stand and shoot same, so you have 24 hits effectively. It's 12 wounds, you have a 5 of armor save, so that's 8 wounds. And then with the attacks, you're gonna have 6 hits. It's gonna be 4 wounds, it's gonna be 3 wounds. And then the horses add another 2 wounds, or 1 wound. So in the end, you do like, what are we at? 12 wounds to the unit before they get to strike. So they have 8 attacks, they might do 2 wounds, they do a wound to you. A unit of 20 heavy infantry, and then you break them and you run them down. So the Shadow Riders, they're a really good harassment unit, which is really going to be able to harass people. And the counter to them is, yeah, it's not that easy. So I'm really delighted to get a chance to play with these guys. Acolytes, really solid unit. If you take the Warlock upgrade, then they turn into a mobile casting platform. If you don't, then they just stay awesome in the sense of having a 5 of Aegis, not being able to get stomped, and having effectively strength 5 on the charge. Basically, if you charge a Sphinx with these guys, the Sphinx dies. That's quite insane, but you have 8 attacks on the small frontage of the Sphinx. They hit on a 2 plus. They wound on a 5 plus, so you do like 3 wounds. It's gonna be 2 wounds. The Sphinx in turn is gonna hit you on 4 plus. It's gonna wound you on 2 plus probably, but you have a 5 of Aegis. So you win the combat. And then, well, if you cast any magic on them, then it's gonna be insane. Dread Knights, they are really solid. It's a bit of a shame that they took away Academy Trained as an option. They used to have Academy Trained as an option, but right now they really become the support cavalry in the army. They have an effective threat range of 8, or an advance of 8 on the charge. They don't really need to charge all the time, so they have agility 6, which is really high. They always had agility 6, so that's fine. But you can give them great weapons now. Great weapons on a agility 6 with 2 attacks each platform with lightning reflexes is really good. They're like mounted swordmasters now. But yeah, also I'm really fan of just going for lance or hand weapon shield, because you already start with strength 4 with a +1 to wound. The only thing they lack then if you just take hand weapon shield is AP, but the gold ones have lethal strike. And it's cavalry, so there's not going to be a lot of wounds being dealt to them anyway. So I think just getting a unit of 5 is already just what you need, and lance or not doesn't really matter. Obsidian Guard, they are a major winner in the new book because they lost Fearless. This was one rule that previously limited them from being useful in MSU units because you couldn't flee, so your opponent could use that as an anchor in your lines. And Will of the Senate allows for a BSB free play, especially with the Beastmaster theme. If you have 2 units of Tower Guard, then you reroll panic checks. The Beastmaster minimizes the panic checks on the beasts. Yeah, these units are just amazing now. For me, especially because they can flee now. And they will still rally quite easily. Judicators have a loss of multiple wounds 2 against standard and a loss of lethal strike, so that you would say that they have become worse. But they have AP 4 instead of AP 3, that should be AP 3 there. So that makes them a little bit better against armor, they're really can openers now. And also they have strength 5 with +1 to wound instead of strength 6. And there's more of supportive items and the option of academy train for them. So they really got a big win in this edition. How you play them? You can take a unit of 10. Yeah, I took a unit of 12, and I was not disappointed. They did what they needed to do, but for them to really shine, you just want to play them in 24 and hopefully not run into any ranged damage. So if you play double Judicators, you can play double Judicators, it's really fun. If you play double Judicators, it's not that expensive even, just get 2 Binding Scrolls in your army, just for these really annoying spells that you don't want to get on your Judicator blocks. Harpies, so true Chaff units are being phased out in 9th Age, so they needed something that was worth like 160 points. So basically they added some models to the unit and said, well, this is it. They wanted it to be able to hunt war machines. You have an 11-inch advance, and you have switch sight on them, so they can charge quite reliably at 20 inches away, which is quite good. And then 2 attacks at strength 4 seems very decent, yet the defense 2 with resilience 3 and no armor save is bad. If you charge a war machine, assuming your unit is intact, then you're gonna have 4 models in contact with the war machine, so that's 8 attacks plus 4 support is 12 attacks. You are gonna hit on a 3+, so that's 8 hits. You're gonna wound on a 4+, so that's 4 wounds to the war machine. So you need some luck to kill a war machine with these guys. And then the war machine's gonna hit you back on a 3+, wound you on worst case a 4+. It's gonna be close to a draw. So for an anti-war machine unit that is about the same cost of a war machine, yeah, I'm not going to take these anytime because you don't really need Chaff that much with the auxiliaries being able to clear Chaff really effectively. So yeah, I'm not sure. Gorgons are a really dicey, real glass cannon. If they get to do what they want to do, then it's insane. Because out of 3 models, you get 15 attacks, 6 hits from stare, 3 stomps. But they're only for resilience 4 with a 5 of Aegis, so against the right target they really shine, and against the wrong target they don't. That's just the easy way to say it. I don't have 3 Medusa models, so I'm not going to play them anyway, but just a single Medusa is also still quite cool. Because a solo character charging in a cowboy is not going to be happy with 2 attacks, 2 auto hits from the stare. Then the Thunderpack. Thunderpack is a really cool counter-charge unit. I wouldn't play it in my main battle line. I wouldn't play it on the flank. I would just play it behind my line because probably somewhere something goes wrong, and this is a unit that you can pop in the gap that is created by stuff going wrong. And 285 points for this unit is just a steal. Because if you look at the damage output on the charge, it's insane. They do have a limited charge range, but I think this is a really cool unit to save up for a later part in the game. So if you plan on playing like 6 turns, So you advance with your battle line. You have these behind. Your battle line is going to be cramped up anyway because everything wants to just get into combat as quickly as possible, preferably. Um, so you're going to keep these behind. They can respond wherever you want because they have light troops, and you can suddenly make some plays where you're just really bold. You just shove a unit in the opponent's face. If they go through, could be possible that they do. It's fine. You have a Thunderback that can countercharge them and completely annihilate them. The Raptor Chariot got a bit toned down. It's a real glass cannon now. It's still useful. It's still it compares a bit better now to the Lion Chariot. The loss of crossbows is a bit of a shame because triggering Send of Blood is harder now. And then the Divine Altar. The Divine Altar is an interesting choice. Crucible of Slaughter. I think it's interesting if you want to play a unit of auxiliaries that you're just going to try to use for suppressing volley. I haven't tried putting a Legion Auxiliary unit 10 white. I don't think it will work because the range is going to be too short. It's not really comparable anymore to the old altar in two ways. One is that the damage output of units just has gotten better. And the second is that it lost its impact hits and it lost the attacks of the guy on top, the statue. So basically, it replaces in the temple militants just the attacks that it substitutes in the unit. I believe it has one more strength, but then strength is not really the problem of the temple militants with every buff triggering a +1 strength bonus. But the effigy of Dread is really incredible. So channel 3 is normally already 150 points. The fear ability at a maximum of 24 inches. This range is just sufficient to cover your advance. Because probably you are going to advance to the opponent. If your opponent is going to advance to you, then you can have a really good day. And yeah, on one side, fear. There's not that many armies currently that are susceptible to fear, but it's also one of the things that the rules team wants to get more ubiquitous. That people are more are going to be more impressed by fear, so less choices will have fear. And also giving your units fear makes them immune to fear, which is also quite valuable. I mean, for 50 points, that's just a steal. And in addition, it also puts a model on the table that your opponent's going to be focused at. You can build a list that highly relies on the effigy of Dread. I wouldn't necessarily do so, but then again, if the only downside of losing the effigy of Dread is that the Mask of the Warcrow will just not trigger on the unit next to the unit with the Mask of the Warcrow, then that's also fine. Yeah, then we go to the last part of the book. So the Black Cloaks, they are the cheapest chaff. Once again, we haven't playtested with crossbows with 3 shots on short range, but I think this suddenly turns them into a useful unit. So before they were just chaff really, and we played with a +1 to hit on short range. We played with what else? 3 shots all times. that was a bit too much. But we mostly played with 2 shots per model, and then they were useful. But I think now with 3 shots on short range, I think they are quite useful. But the trouble is that you run into the radar limit quite easily. So with the repeater auxiliaries in core, if you play academy, then you really want those guys. So yeah, there's a lot of different possibilities, but generally I would say that you just want to stick to one theme and use the units that fit in there, and then you automatically write a good list. The hunting chariots, yeah, this is something I don't follow the design team here. I mean it used to be able to give a shot on a 3+ somewhere within 27 inches, and that was okay. I mean it had strength 7, so it was decent at hunting monsters, and it has AP 3, so it was decent against monsters. Um, and now, yeah, also with Lethal Strike, it was decent against monsters. Now with a hit on 4+, because it doesn't have accurate anymore, with only strength 6, it does have AP 10 now. So against cowboys, it's arguably better. But it does just D3 wounds, and it doesn't have clipped wings. It doesn't have D3+1. The chances of you actually shooting down a cowboy is near 10% or so. I mean, it's 50% to hit. It's likely 2 up to wound, but it might even be a 3 up to wound. There's not going to be an armor save, and then you have the D3 wounds. If you don't manage to roll the 3 on the D3 wounds, you're not killing your cowboy, and if your cowboy goes in your backfield, it can charge the hunting chariot, or it can charge a bolt thrower, or it can charge. It doesn't shut down anything. So I'd rather have a unit of beast tamers extra that you just throw in front of your cowboy and just use that to keep him there. The repeater battery, I think, is way cooler than the hunting chariot. 5 inches advance enables you to get into positions where you can just shoot at the opponent, or where you can just dodge away from something that is trying to hunt you. And yeah, still the fact of being a round-based war machine just screws up the game, in the sense that people can choose their charge arc when they go in, and you cannot flee. So I've been talking about this before, but that's a really big downside to war machines. I mean, they should just allow war machines to be able to flee, and then if you flee, it's destroyed, and that's it. That would be way better, because now it just opens up moves for your opponent. 4+2 hit will not happen that often, because it is 3+2 hit at 12 inches if you don't move. You are likely going to move, so it's going to be a 4 up to hit. And yeah, if the enemy is at more than 12 inches, which is going to be likely, it's going to be a 5 up to hit. So on paper, it seems like it deals a lot of damage, and it does if your opponent allows it to, but otherwise it doesn't. The Kraken is a solid monster hunter, but it feels a bit superfluous to me in the current army. Mostly because infantry is already good enough at dealing with monsters. And the Hydra is as solid as ever, but the Breath Attack going to strength 3 makes it a bit less good against monsters. Last choice we have is the Mist Leviathan. I have no idea. There have been 5 different iterations of the Mist Leviathan during playtesting, and at some point basically the playtesters said, well, stop focusing on the Mist Leviathan because it's not going to work anyway. Just make it a bit of a fluffy choice and be done with it. It's mostly the restriction of the rules team that made it really hard for the Mist Leviathan to get a proper place. Because hard target was not allowed, bubble of hard target was not allowed, shooting defense was not allowed, vanguard was not allowed. There was a lot that was not allowed, so it's really a stress on the team also to make something cool out of this choice. They also tried a transport type of idea, but that just didn't play out well, and it was really complicated. And I think the solution they went for is quite okay. I don't know if 4 inches is enough. I think maybe it should have been 6 inches or 5. But yeah, I don't know. Still, 265 seems a solid piece for solid price for any gigantic beast. And 8 wounds resilience 5 is nothing to sniff at. So I think it's a cool monster. Gonna kill some infantry on the flanks. It's cool. It allows some modeling opportunities. Okay, so that's it. That's the entire book, or at least my opinions on the entire book. Yeah, if you have any questions or comments, just let me know below, and I'll try to answer as much as possible. See you later!